Hello and welcome. This is the impact of caregivers and community in shaping students' academic success. My name is Marie Weller, and I'm a professional learning specialist for Harmony, and I am thrilled to be the moderator of today's webinar. This webinar, again, the impact of caregivers and community in shaping students' academic success, is brought to you by Harmony Academy at National University. We host these webinars to bring together thought leaders and educators to share best teaching practices and tools to support social emotional learning. These presentations are the opinions and content of our guest speakers and may not necessarily be a direct representation of Harmony. All registrants will receive a copy of the recording to watch and share with your colleagues, so be on the lookout for that in your email. Here's what we've got planned today. In today's webinar, we are going to reflect on the important role caregivers and community play in influencing students' academic success, emotional well-being, and social development. We'll be learning effective communication strategies and collaboration strategies to foster partnerships so that we can work together to support students' holistic development. And we will explore ways to align Harmony strategies with community initiatives so that together we can foster social emotional competence in students and promote a supportive, inclusive environment, both in the school and in the wider community. Before we get started, let's poll the audience to find out who is joining us today. Take a moment to answer the question on your screen so we know who you are. All right. Looks like we've got a little bit of everything going on. Well, welcome to all of you. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panelists, and then I'm going to turn it over to them since they are the reason why you're here today. First of all, we have Dr. Deborah Bergeron, Deputy Director of Community Engagement and Innovation at the National Head Start Association. Dr. Bergeron is the former director of the Office of Early Childhood Development and also represented the Office of Head Start as its director. She has spent 3 decades in pre-K through 12 public education as a classroom teacher and as a school administrator. Dr. B will be followed by Denise Diaz from Clark County, who currently holds the position of director in the Family Engagement Department within their engagement unit. Ms. Diaz has a remarkable 28-year tenure serving Clark County School District families. Her rich background in education includes 16 years in the classroom. Then over the course of her career, as she became increasingly motivated to advocate for families, Ms. Diaz took on the role of a family engagement project facilitator for 6 years, then transitioned into school leadership, assuming the position of assistant principal. Fueled by an unwavering passion and belief in the significance of family involvement, Ms. Diaz is committed to equipping students. Oh, I am tripping over my words. Ms. Diaz is committed to equipping schools with research-based practices and programs aimed at engaging families and making a positive impact on student achievement. We are delighted to have two seasoned educators here to share their experiences with us today. So, Dr. Bergeron, I am going to turn this over to you. Can you share a bit about your work and how the engagement of parents and caregivers impacts the success of the young students that you serve?
Absolutely. Thanks, Maria. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Harmony for having me. And I'm really excited to be here with Denise. Clark County does some amazing work, and I know you're going to learn a lot from their implementation of all of this. I'm going to talk about this from the Head Start perspective, and I'm not going to assume that everyone here knows exactly what Head Start is or how it works. So I thought I would just do a little Head Start 101. And as I do that, I'm going to make the connections between Head Start and what we're talking about today and Harmony itself. We're working really closely with Harmony on a number of fronts, and I'll mention those throughout. All right, let's get started. Can you advance my slides for me?
Yes.
Thank you. Just want to make sure that I represent NHSA here. Our mission is really to coalesce, inspire, and support the Head Start field as a leader in early childhood development and education. It isn't just about Head Start programs, it's also about the Head Start program itself and those tenets being carried through other early childhood programs and even into the K-12 environment, which is what we do a lot. Next slide. The purpose of Head Start and Early Head Start, I want to just go over this a little bit because a lot of people will say, oh, it's that preschool program. And certainly it is. It served birth to 5, actually pregnant women to 5, Early Head Start and Head Start does. But it is about school readiness of low income children and enhancing their cognitive, social, and emotional development. I think this is really important because the way Head Start operates is it's through a provision of health, education, nutrition, social, and other services. So it isn't really just about education readiness or kindergarten readiness. It's about pulling families and children out of poverty. And that's a really important thing to think about as we go through today's conversation. Next slide. I'm going to share with you the Early Learning Outcomes Framework, often called the ELOF. This is what it looks like. We're not going to dig super deep into this, but I do want to pull out some of the pieces of the ELOF and talk about how they connect to SEL and then to families. I'll get to that part next. Next slide. So if we look at the approaches to learning on the ELOF, we connect the importance of becoming a successful learner and developing self-regulation. And we know self-regulation is a big part of social emotional learning. In fact, SEL and social emotional learning as a phrase has sort of become misunderstood, I think, in terms of what its purpose is. And self-regulation is a huge part of what SEL teaches young children. Next slide. And then, of course, it impacts the social and emotional development. So positive social and emotional development in early years provides a critical foundation for lifelong development and learning. So what we are doing is planting those seeds, especially early on between birth and 5, when children are developing the skills necessary to regulate their emotions. And that's where learning takes place. It's very difficult to learn if you're not able to self-regulate and to form relationships with other people. There's a lot about emotional functioning and a lot about your own sense of yourself and your belonging in whatever space you are in a classroom or in a family or in the world, ultimately. Next slide. This is a tenet of Head Start that I think is worth bringing out here. Parents are a child's first and most important teacher. So we were just talking about SEL and the early learning framework, and I'm going to weave this into this tenet, which is in the middle of all of this. Head Start believes that parents are the key to a child's achievement, not just when they're babies and toddlers, but really forever. And so investing in that family relationship and that community relationship is a big part of what explains why Head Start children are so successful ultimately, well beyond high school. Next slide. So this is our parent family community engagement framework developed by the Office of Head Start, called the PFCE framework. And this is actually a framework that's been used by many states to develop family engagement work in their schools. So even if you haven't seen this graphic before, chances are pretty good that the tenants in this have made their way into your state education family engagement work at some level. And the thing I want to point out about this framework, I don't think the columns here are particularly unique. Program foundations, we're talking about program impact areas, we're talking about family outcomes. These are all things that schools are going to consider when they're dealing with family engagement and community engagement and that value. But the thing that is so important about this framework, as you get to the child outcomes piece, which all school systems look at child outcomes as sort of the bellwether for whether a program is successful. But Head Start actually considers that family outcome as equally as important. So the well-being of a family, the interaction between parent and child relationships, families as lifelong educators, and then ultimately the connection with the community. This particular component of the PFCE isn't necessarily seen in all family engagement frameworks. And the importance of this is that children are always a child of their parents and a part of their family. So as they grow and develop, the stronger their family network is, the more successful that child is going to be. Next slide. And then we are going to talk about the impact of harmony on a lot of the work that we're doing at NHSA in relation to impacting children. And one of the biggest initiatives we have that just launched about a month ago is this Pathway to Purpose. And I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth later. But the key is this: we took the harmony family engagement components, those pieces of the learning components of the Harmony at Home curriculum, and we embedded them into NHSA's CDA preparation program for early childhood educators. That in and of itself is going to help to connect this SEL component to the preparation of people working with the young children. And then we took it to the next level, and this is actually a program specifically for high school students. So we're looking at trying to influence teenagers when they're thinking about their next steps and making sure they are getting the education they need, the foundation they need to make those decisions after graduation. Next slide. I like to share this slide whenever I talk about Head Start, just mostly so you can understand, if you're not aware of what Head Start is, of its impact on the nation. Each one of these dots is a Head Start program. You can see, I mean, they're denser where the population is denser. That's why you see some that are more scattered out, more rural areas. But we are everywhere: Puerto Rico, America Samoa, Hawaiian Islands, Alaska. And the thing about this that's so important is because Head Start is a federal to local program, in other words, it is not administered by the state, it's administered by the federal government. Each of those dots is a program independent and running based on local community need. And that's a really different kind of model. In fact, Head Start is really the only model of its kind in the nation. And it started in 1965, so it is the oldest as well, as far as early childhood and anti-poverty programs go. Next slide. And that is it. This is me. This is my email. I always put this on my slides because I'm happy to connect with any of you. I know many of you are working right now. You're studying to further your own education. If there's ever anything that I or NHSA can do to support you, very open to have conversations and do what we can. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. B. I've learned a lot about Head Start myself, and this is so important to set up. This Head Start plays such an important role in setting up success of our youngest students, with their families taking the lead. So thank you for sharing that work today. And now, Denise, the work you do, what you're spearheading in Clark County supports the students once they enter the elementary school, where the role of parents continues to be at the forefront. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the partnership and thank you, Dr. Bergeron. I look up to the work that Dr. Bergeron does as well, and I'm excited to continue partnering. So as we look at family engagement in Clark County School District, just to give you a little bit of an idea, we have 300,000 students in our district. We have 373 schools comprised of 233 elementaries, 61 middle schools, and 54 high schools, along with special schools and alternative schools. So when we look at family engagement, we look at it from a global perspective, and we want to always make sure that we never lose sight of the fact that the little things matter. Building relationships with our communities and bringing our families in and not making assumptions about what it is and why families aren't engaging in schools. So this is a thought-provoking question that we often use when we are talking to our school leaders and our school staff that is working in family engagement. So what does your school believe about family engagement? And what does your school environment say that you believe about family engagement? Because oftentimes when we sit back and look at that, that brings out two different things. We're not always showing exactly what we believe about family engagement. For example, we could say, we love families. They're so important. They drive student achievement. You know, their support means a lot to us. But we walk into a front office, it's cold. We're not greeted. The environment itself does not say that we're welcome. It's not multilingual in support. It's not reflective of the belief systems. And then as a school leader or as a teacher, what really is digging deep into ourselves and what do we really believe about family engagement? Is an important conversation piece to start the work of coming up with how you're going to engage families at whatever level that might be. So some of the ways that we do it in Clark County, next slide. Some of the ways we do it in Clark County is by having a University of Family Learning. Our University of Family Learning is workshops and trainings for families. We have over 100 workshops in our catalog, and we look at what it is that families need. But we can't make that assumption. We have to go to them and find out what that is. So really working with our school leaders and our school staff to ensure that we are talking to our families. Sending home a survey on paper or sending a digital survey, you don't always get the results that you're looking for, and it's not comprehensive of the community. So having one-on-one conversations, more interview style with our families is really going to move the needle when you're talking about productive feedback that's going to inform your next steps when it comes to family engagement. So analyze your school. Think about from a perspective, an outside perspective, what does our school actually say that we believe about family engagement? Are we a partnership school where we bring families in together and really truly work closely with them to ensure success? Are we an open door school that we believe that they should be involved, but you know, when we ask for community and support, they often respond? Or are we a come when we call school? Like, we really love you and you're welcome, but when we reach out and call you. Or are we a fortress school? Do we close our doors? Is it difficult for our families to get into our schools? And how do we message and communicate? That two-way communication is so important, and what we say and how we say it are two key components. So when you think about going to, you know, a luxury hotel, they will often have a beautiful robe in there, and it talks about, please enjoy our warm and cozy bathrobe. Wrap yourself in the comforts of home. If you feel that you can't part with it, please visit guest services. What are they actually saying, right? They're saying, don't take it, don't steal it. We've got another option, but that's not what they said. So they didn't insult us by saying, don't take it. They just approach it in a different way. Same with our school signage in that environment. Do we say, stop, all visitors must report to the office? Or do we say, welcome to our school? We're glad you're here. Please stop in the front office, or to ensure safety of students, please stop in the front office. All those little things matter as we look at engaging our community and really truly building a culture of engagement within our school buildings. Because we can't make assumptions about families that say they don't support their kids because they don't care. Have we taken time as educators to really look at, is it just that they don't know what they don't know? Do they understand the curriculum that we're trying to teach? Have we given them opportunities to break it down and show that to them? Next slide, please. So considering the national standards for family engagement, you can see here all the different components. We have 6 standards. And again, some of the things I already touched on, right? Welcoming those families, communicating effectively, supporting student success, speaking up for every child, sharing the power, and collaborating with community. But how do we do that? We have to provide a family environment where they feel like they belong. We're here to support each other. It's reciprocal. And understanding that is going to be the next step for us when we talk about engaging our families and supporting the whole child. Many times we hear, I went into teaching to teach the child. You're asking me to also teach parents, but with the whole child comes a whole family, and we need to think about what we do with our students and how we can help bring our families along the journey with us and ensure that they understand why students are learning what they're learning in school. And then how does a parent go about supporting them? And that's what we do through the University of Family Learning. And then we have engagement centers, and those engagement centers serve as a learning hub for our families so that they can come and they can learn in a safe environment where they can take risks, where they can ask questions, where they can feel vulnerable. And it doesn't matter where they came from, right? No judgment zone. And those learning hubs become very important in the work that we do, along with obviously weekend opportunities. In our centers, we focus a lot on our social emotional learning and building our families up with different strategies that they can use to engage with their child and have conversations that will build that ability to bring out emotions and have hard discussions, because sometimes family discussions are going to be hard. But we have strategies out there. Harmony at Home has been very beneficial to our families. It's been able to break it down into digestible pieces for them and have them be able to have those tough conversations and how to de-escalate a child. So many components, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we dig deeper. Next slide, please. So as we are looking at transforming our family engagement and what we do in our schools, I want you to think about these 4 I's. Is it inclusive? Do we look at diverse perspectives? Is it individualized, meeting the needs of the unique families? Is it integrated into the system? When we're talking about standards in curriculum, have we broke it down for families and invited them in for last hour of the day lesson or the first part of the day lesson, or using Zoom or Google Meets to do the intro lesson and have families there? You can put the camera on yourself and you can do your intro lesson, and then the family can take those strategies and apply them at home. When they come home with their homework or they have questions, they have a little more understanding of what's being taught in the classroom. And then impactful, empowering the families to support their child's success. So empowerment of families is very important. Parent leadership, you got to draw those parents out of in your community. And there's so many different strategies that we can share. And I'm happy to sit with anyone who would like to reach out in the future to discuss ways that we've done it in Clark County, but also to learn from you, because having a thought partnership is so important. Next slide, please. So we have lots of information to share. There is a QR code that takes you to our webpage that you can learn a little bit more about what we do in Clark County to service the 300,000 students and their families. And I'm happy to share any of that information moving forward. Our social media is there as well. At CCSD Family is where you can find all of our social media information, where we also share resources and connections to the community with our families. You're muted, Marie.
Okay, so anyway, thank you for sharing about what's happening in Clark County. It makes me think of the saying about how it takes a village, right, to raise a child, and it's clear that what you are doing within your school system and what's happening in Head Start is really wrapping our arms around the village and welcoming everybody and valuing the participation of parents in raising their in raising their children along in the world of education. If our viewers have questions for Dr. Bergeron or Denise, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A box. And meanwhile, Denise, can you take a few more minutes to share a bit about the Harmony at Home pilot program that we are currently rolling out with Clark County Family Engagement Centers?
Yes, I would love to. We're very excited about the opportunity to pilot such a wonderful program such as Harmony at Home. Harmony at Home is a structure that is empowering families with tools that are that make sense for a family. Sometimes I feel like we provide families with tools that are not don't give them what they actually need. And our pilot is exciting because our families have been using it in our family engagement centers, initially facilitated with the model of the facilitator in the classroom using it with the families alongside them, but then also empowering families to take those strategies and use it at home and then come back and report on how it went. And then we've been doing feedback sessions with the families after they've been using the Harmony at Home, both in the classroom setting to learn about the structure and then also at home with their actual children. And then they come back and they share with us and they share with Harmony what's working and what's not working. You know, what are things that we can improve, because there's always room for improvement. And what we have found is that parents are saying, you know, you don't learn in the comfort zone, right? Being a little uncomfortable with these conversations, but having the support of the talking points and having the support of the conversation cards and the topics has really helped them be able to drive their family's social emotional wellness conversations, and has allowed the students also to see that it's okay to not be okay. And families are able to now connect that, you know, the importance of, yes, you are the parent, but we have to remember as a parent that you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your child. Just like they tell you on the airplane, if you don't care for yourself, you are not going to be able to care for your child. So that importance of understanding those connections, this is why I need to have these conversations, because it's beneficial to the holistic approach of working with our families on social emotional wellness. So yes, it's been very exciting. We're excited to continue the work. We have another feedback session coming up in the summer, and you know, it's going to be amazing.
We are all looking forward at Harmony to learning more about the feedback from your families. I also think it's really cool that this is not a one and done, and parents are learning about emotions right along with their kids, right? Because a lot of us as adults did not really learn how to manage discomfort. We don't know, and if you can't regulate your own emotions, then when our kids are experiencing those uncomfortable emotions, then it just kind of ignites our own anxiety, right? And so as our children are learning, the parents are learning, it makes it better for everyone, which I think is really cool. So so Dr. B, how have Harmony strategies been effectively woven into the collaboration of members in your community to support student social emotional development?
Yeah, actually, I think there are a couple of things to talk about. The one kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, and that is that taking the family engagement components in the Harmony at Home curriculum and weaving them into our CDA program. And I don't, for folks on the call who might not know what the CDA is, the CDA is the entry point to early childhood education. If you don't have a bachelor's degree or a teaching certificate, you can be a teacher in a Head Start program with a CDA. So a lot of even our parents, community members come to Head Start. We train folks in our programs, and they end up creating a career path for themselves through the Head Start program. The importance of the Harmony component here means that as they are learning what they need to know to get their CDA, they're also really embracing that SEL work and getting access to those resources that can support that work. I think that's a really important component of what we're doing here at NHSA. And with this partnership program through the Pathway to Purpose scholarships, we're talking about high school students now being exposed to deliberate and intentional social emotional learning curriculum, seeing how that impacts the development of young children, and taking that work into classrooms where they do practicum hours. In order to get your CDA, it requires 480 practicum hours. And so while they're doing that practicum work in an early childhood setting, they're taking what they're learning in the curriculum into the classroom. So it's influencing those children, the teacher in that classroom who may or may not know about Harmony and that whole family engagement component. And so the idea is that we kind of find this other avenue to influencing how ready folks are when they graduate from high school to make these sort of decisions. And I've said in a couple of different meetings before, some of the students who study for the CDA in high school might not become an early childhood educator. They might learn in that process. That isn't really what they want to do, but they definitely will be a better parent, because just learning about child development and how to work with young children in this way is helpful for anybody who has any interaction with children. So we're very excited about that. And particularly, I want to highlight the comment cards that are included with the package. As a teacher and a former principal, I found this particular resource to be particularly effective. And I think it's because of the ease in which you can use them. So if folks on the call are curious about that, maybe you could drop the link to the quick connection cards that come with that package, and they can look those up and kind of see what I'm talking about. It was something that I was introduced to long time ago when I was at the Office of Head Start, actually, and Harmony came to meet with me. And as an educator and an educational leader, I thought these were a great resource for practitioners.
Well, thank you. And yes, our quick connection cards are very popular among all of the school people and the out of school folks that we work with. I was wondering, and this question would be for either one of you, can you talk about, give us some ideas on in what ways can Harmony contribute to the creation of those supportive and inclusive environments for families? And how can we foster the emotional well-being of children and their academic success?
I was going to add on to what Dr. Bergeron said about the quick connection cards, because we really do, use those a lot in our family engagement centers, and we use them even in our workshops. The workshops and trainings, we always start with quick connection cards because it's just a good way to kind of literally break the ice, and have people from all different cultures be able to connect, because you don't have to speak the same language to build a relationship. And really, truly, through those cards, it does help manifest that. The other component that I was going to speak to was the Harmony Game Room app, which is, you know, a downloadable app on the phone that has been very instrumental in assisting our families with those de-escalation strategies. It has all kinds of different opportunities for families to see the what we're telling them, but in action. So that is another component I would you know, have you explore for your own purposes. I think what's really important for providing families that environment is to first prioritize family engagement. If it's not a priority, that's the problem. We need to consider it part of what we do. It's not an add-on. It's not a strategy, it's a way of thinking, and it is a culture that has to be established. So whether you do it through family engagement centers or learning hubs or resource centers, or if you just do it in your everyday practices of welcoming families on campus and bringing them in, you're going to first build that community. Building the communities where you start, and then you can bring in the resources through the Harmony Academy. There's so many available to you that it just doesn't make sense not to use it. It's free, and the components are research based, and it's been tried and true for many years, and across many large districts too. So I think for me, it's just having them be able to be exposed to it, because they're not going to know to go find these resources on their own. So we have to model it for them and show them pieces and parts of it to basically, you know, bait them in, and then you hook them and, you know, show them all the great things, and then they become a big fan. So I think that's where we start.
Well, thanks for mentioning some of those components of Harmony. And as you mentioned, Harmony is a great resource for supporting this work. Our schools and our out of school time providers who use our no cost curriculum find our homeschool connections to be a really great way to connect with families. The home letters that go with each unit explain the social emotional concepts that are being taught in the classroom, but then they offer really practical suggestions for reinforcing those skills at home. So folks that who are asking, what can I do to help? These are just some really great relationship building strategies and ideas for building social emotional capacity. The other thing, as you mentioned, is, I'm moving to my next slide here, our Harmony at Home kits. And they can be ordered just from our website. These are great for supporting families as they look for strategies to continue to build those healthy relationships in the home. The kits are available in both English and Spanish. And more information about the kits can be found on our website. And I have a QR code right there on the screen if anybody is interested in exploring those more. Again, Denise and Dr. Bergeron have mentioned the quick connection cards, and you can see that the kits do include the conversation and collaboration and community building cards that can be used with your families. We have Z, our mascot, and the storybooks that talk all about Z and the clubhouse friends and how Z is trying to navigate the social world of Earth with the help of a diverse group of 15 kids who lead Z through that exploration. It looks like we are just about out of time. Any closing thoughts, Dr. B or Denise?
I think you've said it all. I think I would just reinforce a lot of what Denise was talking about, and the I think the real key here is just a practical application of this stuff is very basic. It's not complicated, and that's not just from a parent's perspective, also from an educator's perspective. So things that are easier to implement, easier to access are going to get more mileage. Life is busy, people are distracted, and that's what I think is really beneficial here. Is it's a very natural sort of thing to use in the way that it's presented. I think that's why those cards are so effective, and they parlay into an app where people are more comfortable with their phones. It's really a very similar thing. So I think that's really the benefit there.
Yeah, I would agree with Dr. Bergeron on that. And not to give up the fight and look for that low-hanging fruit. And oftentimes something like using a Harmony at home or the Harmony quick connection cards, that in itself, just building that family efficacy of emotional health is often the low-hanging fruit. And we overcomplicate things sometimes when we think it has to be something big. It's the little things that matter, and those little things build upon each other. So I would agree, the resources are there. We just have to be able to connect it with our families, and also practice what we preach. Going out and thinking about, why does this matter to me? And if you never forget your why, then you're going to be okay. We do this work for a reason. We do it out of, passion and consideration for families, but there's usually something else that's personally driving us. And whatever that is, don't ever lose sight of that, because it can have its up and downs. Family engagement can have those times where, you don't have the participation or what you were hoping for, and it's okay. It's okay. Just don't give up. Try something different, try something new, vary it just a little bit, and see what results you can get out of it.
Well, thank you. I think you've summed that up beautifully. So thank you, Denise. Thank you, Dr. Bergeron. And thank you to all of the educators who joined us today. Don't miss our next webinar on August 27th. We are going to be talking about the synergy of AI and the human connection. Registration for that will open soon. And again, thanks again to today's panelists. We thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and attending today's webinar. Be on the lookout for a survey, which will be popping up on the screen. And we appreciate you sharing your feedback on our survey so that we can improve future webinars. Have a great day and have a wonderful summer.